When the AIDS crisis was at its height in the mid and late 80s, I was in graduate school in Austin, Texas, and it was a terrible, terrible time. We of course had a large LGBT community in Austin, and young, very talented, very vibrant young men were just dying in droves. And so I was volunteering at the Austin AIDS Crisis Center, and our main objective really was to kind of step in as surrogate family for a lot of these young men, because sadly a lot of their families abandoned them. And so we had a goal to make sure that nobody died alone. And so we worked in shifts, sitting with people, making sure they weren't alone through their illness, making sure that they weren't alone at the time of death. And it took a huge toll on all of us, really. And a lot of the volunteers were lesbians that were taking care of our gay brothers. And it just felt like such a tremendous, tremendous loss to our family. We did a lot of risky things. We collected medications, AZT and other medications, which were extremely expensive, from the men who died, and redistributed them to people who needed them, who couldn't afford them, which of course was extremely illegal, and we could have gone to prison for that. There was another point where I flew to Los Angeles with a friend whose brother had died, and she had gotten a call from his lover telling her that Tony had died. So I flew out to LA with her, and we walked in on a scene where Tony was dead, and his lover had died by suicide because he was convinced that nobody would be there to take care of him. Those were the kinds of desperate times that we saw. And we also, frankly, we had to pass the hat a lot just in order to bury these folks, because their families rejected them, didn't want to have anything to do with them. And I think that probably still today there are families that don't know where their sons and their brothers and their grandsons are buried, which makes me incredibly sad. If I learned anything at all from that, I learned that it's extremely important for us to be family to each other and to hold each other in sacred community all the time, not just during times of crisis, but maybe especially during times of crisis, to make sure that we're all taken care of physically and emotionally, and to step in and fill the gaps where maybe birth families and government and institutions fall short. I think today we don't talk about the AIDS crisis enough. I think that we perhaps have fallen short on giving enough support to people who lost loved ones during the AIDS crisis. And I'm really happy that there are programs and services and things like the one tonight that recognize those who died, and those who stepped in, and those that were left behind.